So, the title for today, Transforming Paper-Led Processes. Okay, so lots of processes which are paper to start with, but actually you can transform into an electronic process, you can digitize, you can take advantage of technology. I'm going to talk about some of the challenges, and specifically around POD collection and processing. I'll just mention briefly why paper's still important in that process. People ask me the question, why isn't all this done on glass on a mobile device now? There's some reasons for that. I'm going to talk about capture technology, the processes, the techniques, the technologies that you can use to go from that paper world to an electronic world. I've got a couple of case studies then. Okay. Case study number 1 is Reboard. Case study number 2, I'm under a non-disclosure agreement, I can't tell you who it is. And hopefully I'll get through the presentation without accidentally mentioning the name. And the final thing, I'll just talk about the value you get from this electronic processing. What you can unlock, what you can do within your organisation, how you can provide better customer service to your clients. So, challenges. In the logistics business, any logistics, particularly temperature controlled food logistics, you are custodians of the goods that you are looking after. Okay? Many of our clients are warehousing and distribution. So they're taking in goods from the manufacturer, they're retaining those goods, they get call-off orders from the supermarkets, they then do the shipping. Payment for your client depends on having that proof of delivery. It's just essential for that process. So quality and condition of that paperwork is really, really important. Also, as your handler, your custodians of those goods, you're liable for claims. You know, if something goes wrong in that process, you're the guys with their hands on it, you're the guys who are going to have to do something about that, either to mitigate that or, quite frankly, look after your customers' interests. So, why paper? Why is paper still there? Why haven't we gotten rid of that already? Well, although in-cab technology for logistics is getting better and better all the time, and things like first use inspections and so on can, and in my opinion should, be done with digital devices. You can do it faster, more efficiently. However, for PODs, proof of delivery, where you're actually unloading goods, checking quantities, ticking things off, a piece of paper can actually still be the best way of doing that. And the third reason for this, the retailers, the end receiver of those goods, they're the power players in the market. You know, the Porter's 5 Forces stuff, they're the guys who are calling the shots. And what they don't want to do, they don't want to sign your terms and conditions as a logistics haulier. They're going to present you with their goods received note. They're going to give you their documentation. They're just calling the shots. That's just the way it's going to be. Not everywhere, and not even consistently across their old distribution centres, but lots of the big 4 are still giving paper. So, retailers, they may or may not issue you with these GRNs, and it won't be consistent from depot to depot, so you're not quite sure. You know, it should be consistent within a depot, but different depots will operate in different ways. This means that signed PODs and these goods received notes, for which the retailers will charge you replacement costs if you lose one, they're being given to drivers, they're being handled by drivers. They go into the cab environment, they come back into the debrief process when that driver comes back to your depot. Checking of this paperwork is critical. And by checking, I mean understanding, have I got it all? And is there anything about that documentation which is causing me a problem? Getting those proof of deliveries back to your clients, back to your customers, is actually critical to their cash flow. It can be a key differentiator doing this more quickly for those organisations. So, what does a baseline solution look like? What does the basic do? And bear in mind, I've been working with organisations in this sector for over 10 years, and this is what I was presented with when we started out. Okay, your baseline solution is, okay, show me your paperwork. Let's start having a look at this, page by page. Let's check for the discrepancies. Then start chasing the customer service issues, start creating copies of those PODs for your clients, and then you're going to start filling archive boxes with paper. Because actually, 2 weeks later, can we have a copy of? And can we find that? That's your baseline solution. That's just the manual process. And I won't do a show of hands who's still doing that, okay, but I'm sure some people are. Not everybody has gone down this electronic route. The thing that used to really amuse me back then, though, was that even if somebody had started giving you electronic documentation, the first thing that happens to fit into that process is it gets printed out, creating a paper copy, which goes through all of this manual handling process at that point. It's really painful because they've just placed a cost on you for producing that paperwork. So, capture technology, how does that come into the mix now? Well, there are, just high-speed scanning devices are not new. They've been around for a long time now. We can put a device such as, I think that's a Fujitsu device on there, one of our partners, and we can scan hundreds, 130 pages per minute, I think that scanner does. Putting paper away is fine. The key element to all of this process is actually the software that sits behind that. I'm a software guy and I will bang on about this until my dying day, but actually software's got to be easy to use. And if it's not easy to use, we didn't do a good job for you. But also in this particular context, in terms of the functionality, the software should be doing lots of those automated checking processes, those standard checks that people have to do in the paper world and are really error prone because you get bored and you don't like doing it. Okay? And also, if you're routing these documents and making them available for your business partners, for your clients, for the manufacturers of the foodstuffs, let's have a portal for that. Let's not be creating more documentation to send out. Let's make it easy for them to get it. So that's what I expect from electronic document management. So we'll talk about some case studies. The first one here is Reboard. Now, just to give you some idea, this is probably from about 8 or 9 years ago when we first started working with Reboard, and the solutions evolved year on year, many more things that the solution's doing for them now. But at the time they came to us and said, we'd like to streamline our processes. It's important to know, streamline because there's nothing fundamentally wrong with what they were doing, it was just time consuming. Okay? It was expensive to do that. But they were already pretty accurate, but they wanted to get more accurate. They were already identifying the issues, they just wanted to do it faster. They wanted to improve that customer service, get that POD out quicker. And they also wanted to get some paper out of this process. They'd set themselves some pretty stringent targets there. They wanted to be more environmentally aware, greener. They wanted to take 30% of the cost out of that process. Just in the context, case study number one that I'm talking about here is the slightly simpler case. Reboard, they're quite a unique organisation. They're on one site in Boroughbridge, up on the A1. They can reach anywhere in the UK from that site within 1 day's driving. Okay, so they're within that site. They don't do a lot of subcontracting. Most of the work is done by themselves. At that particular time, they were actually printing out, impact printing, 3-part paperwork, pre-printed for them. And when the documents came back, it was all manual POD processing. Okay, so manual POD returns. By that, I mean they were processing the whole thing manually, and they were creating copies for their clients manually. So creating more documents, which are then posted out. Now, point one there is really good. Makes my job a lot easier because they're producing all the documentation. Okay, they're not using other parties, the third-party stuff. Points 2 and 3 are the bits that we need to get rid of. They're the real difficult bits because they're causing cost for Reboard. So, what we did, we got rid of the impact printing straight away. They were printing 3 parts, and it's a great conversation to have. What happens to the different parts of that document? Well, part number 1 stays with the customer, part number 2 comes back with the driver, and part number 3, well, we don't really know why we print that at all. Okay, so plain paper printing, which allows them to be more flexible with what they put on there. They can have variable data, they can put offers, alerts, driver instructions, do more things with that. On A4 plain paper, 2 sheets with a staple, actually took out a stroke a third of their paperwork. Got rid of all of that outgoing paper production. It was much cheaper, it saved them the 30% straight away. We interface with a transport system. Now this is really key to a successful POD capture system. Your transport system, which is actually sending the loads out and controlling all of that, that should be your master data. It tells us what's going out, it tells us what's coming back in. but also it generally has clues such as this ASDA depot issues GRNs, this ASDA depot sends electronic GRNs. That means that when the document comes back in, I know what I should have and what I don't need to worry about. And thirdly, we've created that client portal. No more copying of documents and sending those out for their clients. The clients can get them immediately, were notified that they were online straight away. So, the capture process. I just want to talk about this in a little bit more detail because there's a nice little trick in here which we developed together. You know, this consultancy piece working with our customers. We came up with an idea that the document pack comes back to Reboard, and that's got a load plan in there. It's got Reboard's delivery notes for that particular load, and it's got anything that the retailer gave them when they were booking in those documents at that point. Typically, that's about a dozen pages. Some produced by Reboard, some produced by the retailer and given back to them. The first thing we do is use this barcode wand here to scan a barcode from the load plan document. We then look at the transport system, and this happens in real time, and we actually print out some little barcode labels, sticky labels, for the third-party documentation that we're expecting. Because then if I've got an ASDA GRN, which tends to be a music-ruled sheet, I can actually stick that barcode label on, and then when everything goes through the high-speed scanner, we can read the barcodes and we know what we've got. So that's what happens through this process here. And it sounds like, hang on a minute, you're printing stuff out to stick barcode labels onto other documents and making this complex. But actually what it means is that during the debrief process, you've got this fantastic check. If the system spits out a barcode label, you should have something to stick it to. If you don't have something to stick it to, hang on a minute, raise the red flag, go and sort that problem out. It also means stack of documents go on that high-speed scanner, straight through. Yeah? There's no manual keying at any point here. It's taking all the labour out of the process. Okay. So, there are the benefits. The transport system is driving and telling us what's expected, what should we be getting. We've got that fast and efficient checking. Yeah? The machine will work without complaint. It doesn't get bored with this process, and believe me, these guys are doing this at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. And you can take immediate action if something's found to be missing. You've got those alerts built into that process. Right, case study number 2. So, Reboard, they've got some advantages that I mentioned. Yeah. They're producing the paperwork themselves, or most of the paperwork. They're not doing much subcontracting, so it's the stuff the retailers gave you. But in many cases, you haven't got that luxury. If you're taking a load from another haulier, you're part of a network, and you're using paperwork prepared potentially by the manufacturer of the goods, you've got paperwork going through that you never were in control of. And that might have, it might have barcodes on, but they might be somebody else's for their benefit, not yours. Yeah. So you've got an awful lot more difficulty processing that. It becomes a complex challenge. Let's add in now 10 or more depots across the country. Again, they're using this third-party paperwork, customer paperwork, a mixture. There are lots and lots of pairs of hands touching all of these different documents at different stages. There's lots of chance of error, loss, not having the right things in place. So it becomes quite a complex situation. The solution, well, step number 1 here, scan what we're given. It's not so much a solution we designed, it's a solution we had to live with. Yeah, this is what we've got to do, that's how it exists, guys, work with it. What we then built was a text extraction, pulling all of the text out of those documents. Let's look at everything that we've got on there. And then some rules around this. What are we going to do with it? How do we analyse that text? What happens with it? So this is what the capture process looks like as a flow diagram. I'll just work across here. This is, by the way, very simplified, and I'll show you what it really looks like in a moment. But these document packs come into the depot, and it may be the depot that dispatched something, or it may be a completely different depot that didn't originate those documents. It's wherever that driver gets his debrief next. There's some depot-based scanning. Now, what's going to happen here is that those guys are going to scan on multifunctional devices they already had. Yeah? Across here, there wasn't a single piece of extra equipment bought to do this particular project. It was just using what was already there. So technology that the guys were familiar with, things that they could do. What they would then do is all those documents were routed centrally for this processing stage. Automated, happening in the data center. Lots and lots of number crunching going on at this stage. Understanding what that document says, what the relationship is between that document and the next page. So it might be your delivery note plus the retailer's GRN document. And deciding, ultimately, is that okay? Have we got what I expect for that load? Again, we need to be linked to the transport system so we can tick off those documents. But if no, if there's a problem, we can launch that investigation process very, very quickly, again, feeding it back to the depot. Or if that document's okay, through it goes to the client portal and away we run with that. So, the benefits from that system. Yeah? That benefit slide is exactly the same as for the previous case study. Okay? We're solving the same problem, we're doing it in broadly the same way, just with some different technology. But there's quite a bit of complexity behind this. This particular customer of ours, they have individual trading relationships with different clients, so they process things in different ways for their clients. And that leads to some pretty complex process flow within that, and including how discrepancies are handled. Some of their clients want those discrepancies notified to them immediately. Some of them, okay, you sort it out and let me know in a day or two. But there's an enormous amount of complexity and data exports and interfacing to other supplier systems. Okay? That's a kind of a helicopter view of what the flow really looks like. There's another one of those flow charts underneath each one of the blue boxes. So there's a lot of complex rules going on in there. To me, it would be impossible for one person in your debrief area to have all of those rules in their head. But with the technology in place, processing through, applying those rules, flagging up the exceptions, you get a very consistent process. So, some of the outcomes, benefits of electronic document management. This is a Reboard stat. It's something they told us that really shocked me actually when I saw this. They came to our user group and talked about this some time ago. 9 tons of paper per year that they don't produce anymore. That's an awful lot of sheets of paper, 1.8 million. And just printing that out alone and buying the A4 paper will cost you £20,000 a year. So a nice quick solution in there. They had a team of 4 handling their debrief process when we started out. We introduced a system. They've doubled the size of their business, as in the throughput, the number of loads, the amount of work being done, and the work is still handled by 4 people. I think that's a fantastic result for what the system's doing. You've still got to have the debrief, you've still got to work and talk to the drivers, handle the exceptions and so on, but the automation here has actually saved them having to upscale and introduce more cost as they've grown. That was a fantastic result for them. And I've just put a quick calculation there, and just to let people think about, if you're doing a debrief for a driver, say, okay, come in, bring your paperwork, let's check that paperwork. If it takes 10 minutes to do that, 500 loads a day, 5,000 minutes, 83 hours, 11 people. Okay? And 10 minutes might be a little bit optimistic sometimes. Yeah? It can be a pretty complex process. That's without even thinking about accuracy and consistency of processing, simply thinking about some of the time savings there. More benefits. This isn't a Reboard stat, but we talked to one customer where they had, at one particular time, we said, okay, how many outstanding claims for breakages and damages have you got at the moment? And what's the value of that? It's about £300,000. Gulp, okay, that's quite a bit. And what happens with that? Well, we investigate them as best we can and we go through this process, but ultimately, yeah, we're a bit exposed. Yeah, we're a little bit concerned about that. And if you can't sort that out as a carrier, you're going to get a claim against you. Yeah? And that is, you need that documentation in place to defend that. And we've looked at things like, be able to snap a photograph at the point of delivery to say, okay, that's damaged, let's get that information, let's track that back to the warehouse, understand why, and resolve that problem. For me, any delay in actioning this process increases the likelihood of the claim against you, the logistics company, rather than being able to resolve that as a customer service issue. So there's a significant potential for savings there. Now, I'm not going to pretend that the paperwork's actually going to sort everything out for you. I'd love it if it could. But 10%, 30,000, 20%, 60,000, it doesn't take too much of a saving in there of things that probably weren't your fault, and now you know they're not your fault and can evidence that, to actually take some big chunks of costs out of the business. So what kind of softer benefits here? Client service, turnaround. The faster you get a POD to your client, the faster they can invoice, the faster they can get paid. Cash flow's great. Yeah? I did work out that if your customer was, say, they have £1 million worth of outstanding invoices at any one time, and they're getting paid on 45-day terms, and you can take 2 days out of that, that's worth £44,000 to them in reduction in working capital. You can start to put a number around that for interest. FDs would love getting into those kinds of numbers. It's marginal gains, but it's an improvement, and it's tangible to your clients. KPIs though, this is one that I really like. This tends to be really close to your customer service director's heart. Okay, showing your KPIs about what you're doing and your accuracy of paperwork to your customers can be really important. And what we add over the top of our software, you've got your documents that you can retrieve and process, is actually to start putting some real-time dashboards on top which tell you what's going on right now. So here I have just an example screenshot. It's drawn from test data, but you can actually see the number of missing PODs by which of your clients you don't have the PODs back. You can see missing PODs by haulier, i.e. whoever's subcontracting that and hasn't given you the PODs back. You can see missing PODs by depot. Yeah? So start comparing different parts of your organisation and how they're working together. This dashboard is much better than just a report. You will have this in Excel already, I'm sure, but the dashboard allows you to then start clicking through and saying, okay, I've seen that there's something going on in that depot, let's click through and see what the breakdown of that. And click down and click down and click down until you get to the actual detail of the documents that are missing. So you can start to identify problems as they're happening and work them through and address them from that management level. So, I've talked quite a lot about PODs there. That's, it's important to all of us. Those are the great solutions that we've been delivering for FSDF members. However, our MStore product, it's a generic document management solution. It does so much more. It will actually manage quite a lot of your HR documentation. I'll just touch on GDPR there. It's a general data protection regulation handed down by the EU, and it's going to happen in advance of Brexit, and it's going to stick with us. It's a set of regulations designed to protect the data rights of the individual. And as a technology person working in data science, I like that. I think that's a really good thing to do. But it means that if you're touching personal information, people have got the right to be forgotten, they've got the right to ask you to tell them what you've got. So it's kind of onerous for organisations. Now, B2C, banks and so on, they're all over that. We're working with some of those. But within logistics, really simple thing. You've got personal information about your own staff and any contractors who work with you. You need to have that in good order and not create a problem for that later. So you can get GDPR ready, as I would call it, using systems such as ours. Finance has always been a great area for document management. Invoices, supply and purchase, and expense approvals workflow. Dead ringers for the systems. So, just in summary, we've talked there about different areas, but I've grouped them together. Client service, efficiency, profits. That client service, that turnaround, that accuracy, what you can do for your client and how you can show them that you are doing a really good job with their paperwork. That for me is the differentiator between winning more business and having your business at risk of somebody who is actually doing that a little bit better. Yeah? It's a differentiator that you can deploy in the marketplace. Efficiency, that's going to look after your cost base. Yeah? Not having to increase costs as you grow, not having that automated process and checking, do more with the staff that you've currently got. All of this contributes to profit, both actually making more profit right now and protecting your profits for the future, this risk reduction piece, okay, which I think is really important as well. So, thank you for your time and your ears.
Thank you, Neil, for an excellent presentation.